Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today join me in my redone bedroom and my history and love with the P1 chassis of Volvo. But before we get into this video, please browse my previous content, obviously in my channel, subscribe and smash the like button. It really helps me out more than you can know. And every YouTube's like, it just helps me out. Well, it does if you don't really do YouTube and it's not your main priority, one of your main priorities, you would not know. But anyway, sit back, chill out, and hold on, because this is gonna be a bit of a history lesson, me sharing my life, and just general stats and numbers. So keep your eyes open for this one and enjoy. Right, so just getting the new viewers up to speed. We own a P1 Volvo for nearly 10 years, time flies, before the XC90. And that was a truly incredible car, from reliability to how well the design held up, to the performance in some variants, not the one we had. I'll get to that as well. The engines and chassis suspension. I'll cover most of it in this video. Of course I don't have like 20, 25, 30 minutes. So what? I'll do that in another video if you guys want. And as I did with the Aston Martin video, starting off with design. The V50 was the station wagon going up against the BMW E91 3 Series. The C70 went up against the E93, which is a convertible 3 Series. The C30 going up against the E87 1 Series, and the S40 went up against the E90 generation of 3 Series, which is a sedan version. Lots of letters and numbers. The design was, this is my opinion, I think it's one of the best looking estates ever made, as it's not too boxy like old brick Volvos, not old tube boxes, but still definitely throws back to them, and also gives what the future at the time when it came out in 2004, the S60 and V60, the front end with the kind of rounded front, and I think it made for a really handsome front end. The rear end uncluttered, just normal. You got a little wing on it, the R design, which I don't really like that much. And our car, the SE, had two like really little like weird fins on the back, on two sides of the third brake light at the top. The side just had one long continuous line, kind of tapering down just a little bit, as well as typical corporate design language at the front. The two headlights on each side, normal. The main grille with the Volvo emblem, and then the lower smiley face at the bottom with two fog lights on either side, lower down. But what complemented that was how it would go from the bonnet, which would go like that, into the almost grille and the bottom part of the mouth, and that would frame the primary grille with the Volvo emblem and the lower grille at the bottom. And that was found in the 240s, and a lot easier to tell the first generation V70 and 850. The S40 I think had a bit of a perky ass, but Volvo saloon cars have mainly had perky asses. Bring the ass just a little bit more out, as it's a bit just perky, I'll be really honest. Small bum. Small. I think still Same frontal features as the V50, mainly. That's just, if you're a Volvo connoisseur, I guess I could say. The S40, the bottom part where the grille frame, the bonnet almost framed the grille, had tapered down. That stopped underneath the primary grille, and you had just almost like the E46 3 Series at the bottom of that secondary grille, spanning all the way across with the fog lights embedded. I'll put a picture up here. That was overall also a solid looking car. Perky aspect, you can make this look really nice as well. I'll leave the best for last, which is the C30. The C70, I think it looks not bad, definitely not. Looks a lot like an E93 generation 3 Series, which looked never looked bad, but it wasn't best material from either BMW or Volvo. Audi, I think, did it the best with their B7 convertible, B6 convertible, I think it was. But anyway, the C30, the hatchback that was designed for the youth and attracted the youth, as well as the older age of designers and artists and architects, all that kind of stuff, with the front part being exactly off the V50 and S40 and C70. The side, similar but different because it's a hatchback, but not just your normal 4-door hatchback. I mean 5-door, sorry. It was strictly a 3-door with the rear hatch being full glass to pay homage to the P1800 ES estate. Well, it's not a real estate, it's a shooting range. It's complicated. Anyway, that was obviously paying a bit of history and memories to the P1800 ES, which I think is one of the best looking cars ever made. Full stop. I'll put a picture up here. Point and case. Let me know what you guys think of the P1800, S40, C70, C30 and V50 in terms of design. And so now, moving that into the past, onto the engines. So, Volvo weren't using Ford and Mazda's units for their upper trim levels of the V50, C30, so on and so forth. Just call it P1 platform because that's what it is. Again, to the architecture after this, Volvo used their own white block 5-cylinder engines, which have a very distinctive noise, and by distinctive I mean they sound incredible. Here's a clip. They do sound incredible, and they were quite reliable apart from in the T5s, the turbocharged 2.5 litre 5 cylinders. The fuel lines, if you never got them replaced and done by Volvo, they would fray. I don't know what that is, but they would fray, and when fuel lines fray, petrol and fire. You don't want that happening to your stylish Volvo. So most people, or a lot of people, did that, who modified them. And of course, that leads me on to the perfect topic of modifications. People obviously took Volvo 5 cylinders because of their sound, reliability, and design. And people got a little out of them. I mean, they had forged, I think they had a forged crankshaft and maybe forged pistons. I know it had forged crankshaft and maybe a connecting rod. Yeah, maybe a connecting rod being forged. But I remember the crankshaft being forged. It was also all aluminium, the block and heads. The 4 cylinders were all naturally aspirated, with the 5 cylinders being the T5 turbocharged and the 2.4i being naturally aspirated. But even for the 2.4, which did not have as much aftermarket support, there was still stuff for like an exhaust, and those things sounded a lot closer to a Lamborghini Gallardo or Audi R8 FSI than a family Volvo. That is quite amazing. As I said, the 4 cylinders and 5 cylinders, engines ranging from 1.6 litres all the way up to 2.5, which for a hatchback mounted transfer with an engine mount transverse to east-west, it was quite big, 2.5 litre. I mean, BMW's E87 had a 3 litre N52 engine mounted longitudinally. I guess Audi were using the A3's 3.2 VR6. But it's still large. It's still a large engine. And those engines made up to 240 brake horsepower in the T5 with a pulse optimization, which could only get strictly for the T5. And now onto the architecture and chassis. It has a monocoque chassis in something like corrosion resistant steel, or along the lines of that. You can clearly see I don't remember too much about it. But I do know, and I did check, suspension up the front is McPherson struts, which isn't the most sporty setup if I'm being brutally honest, and multi-link suspension at the rear. You know what two cars have those setups? A GAC BMW M3 and an EP3 generation Honda Civic Type R, which Jeremy Clarkson did love. And if you loved it, that automatically means the car is cool and automatically means it's good. You can't argue with that. That meant the car wasn't what it wasn't light. It was like 1.55 tons, roundabout. 1,550 kilos, roundabout. It was, yeah, roundabout 1,550 on average through all trim levels. 1.6 through 2.5 T5 cars. And that is a bit heavier than the BMWs, and about the same as the Audis, if not a bit more still, because they do weigh more than a fucking cathedral. It weighs more than a house, basically. And that is something you get with Volvos because of all of the tech, which in the V50 there wasn't all that much of. But that was good because you had hydraulic power steering, you had the option still of a manual or a 5-speed or 6-speed. They use an automatic gearboxes, with the manual being an M66 unit, and I think M56 and M66, I think. I know you got the 5-speed and the 6-speed manuals. And the Asian TF60, I think it's TF60, so no, yes, and I've got the TG81 SE. I think it's a TF60, I'm pretty sure. Which wasn't, the manual was great, with the longish gear ratios. I mean, the automatic in the 2.4 that I drove would do like 75 in the first. I think, yeah, on first. And that is just silly. And now onto the interior. The interior, well, was pretty much symmetrical with the cage cluster, steering wheel, and steering column, making it asymmetrical. It's not a McLaren F1, it's a Volvo. And it just gave it like a really simplistic and not necessarily upbeat kind of mood, but it gave it it never felt heavy and intense when you got in it. It never felt cheap. It felt a little bit cheap, like the lower part of the dashboard that was disgustingly scratchy. The seats, they are incredible. I'm sat on one now that I pulled out of an S40 and spent like 750 rand on 1,000 rand on, which is the best 1,000 rand I have ever spent. I know I look so happy for myself, and it's not the biggest thing. I'm proud of it. It's got seatbelt. It's still even got the airbag in it, which I'm not going to say. Oh, thank you very much. The seats are great. The waterfall center console debuted in the P1 Chassis Volvos, and that was pretty neat, apart from my dad having his sunglasses stolen. I mean, to be fair, we live in a pretty dangerous country. Yeah, things can get stolen from the back of the waterfall console, so don't leave anything important there, or at least take it out. I was just really cool behind your radio and air conditioning controls to have storage space. The steering wheel, not the fattest thing in the world, not the meatiest thing in the world. Looked quite nice, felt pretty nice as well. Interior, all leather, and it's this kind of cheap plastic that I was saying. And that waterfall console could be had in wood trims, plastic. Plastic makes it look like something it's not. Another trim of plastic and black plastic, as well as like a metal finish. One update was for the interior, it came with a facelift. The traction control button was by the handbrake, the STC button, stability traction control, right over there, so you could just hit it and that would do more or less nothing. It'll do something. But when they changed the center console to be much more modern with the slidey tray cover for the cup holders, they moved all of the traction control systems into the left indicator stalk, which you had to spin until it said DSTC on, hold and reset button until it said DSTC spin control off, and that meant you could spin the tires in a straight line and a little bit around the corner. Well, at least my experience, which I'm going to get into experience now, or shortly. And the back seats I spent lots of time in. You got the cool booster seats in the back if you're a child, and if you're an adult, it's not like the rear headroom was cramped. I mean, in the C70 with the roof up maybe, but the C30 and the S40 and the V50 are all fine. Electric seats, I'm not sure they weren't standard, that is for flipping sure. But I'm not sure if they were optional, probably. And with that being wrapped up, onto the driving experience. While you watch a few clips of me hooning around and being a little shitter in the P1 Volvo, now V50.
Okay, Jesus Christ.
Let me tell you how it felt. The power steering was hydraulic, which meant it felt somewhat analog. It's no go-kart, and I can say with experience, I did go-karting in nationals for a few years. It never felt like a go-kart with instant the turn in is just boom boom. Or like a 458, which had a Ferrari 458, which I've not driven, but I could feel from the passenger seat, and 430s. They're quite hyperactive steering in those. It had weight to it, and it had purpose to it, which for me is something the XC90 is really missing. And steering for me isn't entirely a make or break, but it might as well be. The steering had purpose to it. The manual gearbox I've not used before, but it had the Triptronic system because we had the 6-speed in the V50 and the 5-speed in the S40 was good enough. That was slow, the shift times, but they weren't like super slow. But for me, what was really incredible was when me and a friend took his C70 to its top speed, roof on and roof down. The way it pulled, it was a C70 T5 with pulse optimization, and at that time it had suspension that wasn't rotten to pieces. It just pulled first all the way through into 6th. It just moved. Sure, it wasn't like a 400 horsepower BMW, like in a 340 or a 540 E5. It wasn't something like that, but it, for a, it's, how is it now? 18 years old. For a car that's 18 years old, it pulled pretty hard, and that was incredible because it wasn't super like fast from the get-go. It was obviously spinning its tires from the get-go, but when it got grip in like top of second, like complete grip, it would pull from like 100 kph onwards, and it would just pull hard. 100, 115, 121. 127, 130, all the way up to the 245 km/h top speed. Sure, at like 220-ish, it really did start to slow down. It was like 220, 222, 224, 225, 224, 227, all the way up to 245. And now that I've let out that secret, it was an incredible experience to do that speed, the fastest I've ever gone. 245 kilometers an hour, that's 153 miles an hour. No matter how you put it, it's dangerous. Kids, don't do it at home, please. It's not the smartest decision. I can't stop you, but I don't recommend it. Anyway, it was amazing. And it was surprising how it got there for how much power it had and the weight that it was pushing. But I guess good gearing and decent aerodynamics got you there. The V50 had a pretty little tiny boot, which we experienced when he took it on many family holidays. The boot is really small because of the multi-link rear suspension being far from compact. That took up boot space, but with good reason. It handled rather well. It obviously wasn't going to be sublime, but it was, it was solid. You definitely look at it and be like, oh yeah, it's not actually it's not bad for a Volvo, and not bad even for any of its competitors. The C30 was just in a league of its own. Styling was in its own class. The interior was, from a design standpoint, was in its own class. Safety, of course, being a Volvo, in its own class. And its engine, the classic 5-cylinders and the 4-cylinders, all very reliable apart from a few small problems. Those are really good. And the C70, well, C30 with the roof chopped off. S40, Same as the V50, just different shape. V50, great. So what have we discovered coming to the end of the video? They are reliable, they're relatively fun to drive, you can make them really fast, you can make them fun, they're of course going to be safe, and they're of course going to look the part. So would I recommend one if you are looking for something rather quirky, pretty cool, pretty underrated, a daily driver? Would I recommend it? If you have the money, of course. And I say of course because it's not like you're gonna get disgusting repair costs. You can go to people like, we take our car to a brand called Revolve down in Paro, who are incredible. They're not Volvo, but they're absolutely incredible. And they have not stuffed anything up. So you can take it to Volvo professionals and specialists and they'll give you a much more reasonable price than Volvo. Fuel efficiency ain't great, I will admit, especially in this time period that we are in with the conflicts happening in countries and petrol prices going whoosh. I would still recommend it. And with that being said, thanks so much for watching. I'm TJW and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.